Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
You have more energy that's recouped for creative endeavors and for making more money and for building your business or whatever else you want to do when you're not using that energy to try to combat a perception of a threat that is your emotions. Your emotions are not there to hurt you.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator. I'm Moshe Popack, and today we chat with Jason Goldberg. Jason is a global keynote speaker on future-proof leadership and is a mental performance and leadership coach for celebrities, changemakers, and CEOs. He's been featured on ABC, CBS, and Fox, and he's the author of the #1 international bestseller on self-leadership called Prison Break. And he's also really, really funny. So enjoy my conversation with Jason. There's so much I want to talk to you about, but let's first start with, weirdly enough, rap music. There was a point in time you actually opened for Wu Tang Clan. Tell us about
and you got a
right?
Staten Island guy on your team. Of course, he was excited about this.
Right, I know. Dave's like, you got to ask about that because I remember like one of like a rare Wu Tang album was bought by one of those pharma bro who ended up in jail, and I just remember that. I was like, wow. And I remember as in my teenage years how much I enjoyed Wu Tang Clan. So. How was that?
It was a brilliant marketing thing, right? The CD thing, having the one album release, like the one copy, and that's pretty brilliant marketing. And you got to give him credit for that. I mean, that came about. I was always such a hip hop fan growing up. I kind of got into hip hop around 13. I remember I bought 2 CDs from a neighbor's garage sale at the exact same time. Couldn't have been more different. The first one was Dr. Dre's The Chronic, and the second one was Summertime by Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. And I bought those 2 CDs at the same time. And I guess I had to choose. Am I going to go towards more like the kind of underground, harder rap or like the kind of poppy kind of Will Smith rap? And I went more the like underground East Coast Wu-Tang type thing, started getting into writing my own lyrics, and actually started at like 15 years old, taking out the little pamphlets that were inside of CDs, because they used to do this back in the day, and they would have all the lyrics, right? And I would sit there and just rewrite Nas's lyrics, for example, to feel the muscle memory of what it must feel like to write rhymes, to write raps. And I think there's something so amazing there about kind of mimicry or mirroring people who do or have done the things you want to do, just to feel like, how might it feel if I step into that character, that identity? So it just kept going from there. And then in Orlando, which is where I was raised, my rap group I was in became the go-to for anytime big artists would come in. They would ask us to open up, and they didn't want all of us to open up because we had a little Wu-Tang thing going on too with like 7 guys, or like, nobody cares about you guys. So you pick 1 or 2 people for each artist that comes in. And so when they would come in, it'd be like, Busta Rhymes is coming in town, and my buddy would be like, I got to open for them. And, Twista would come in town, I got to open for them. And then Wu-Tang came in town, and I'm like, I got to open for them. And so we just had this beautiful journey of being able to open for these big artists.
Wow. I really love that. How was that experience like singing? I always wondered about that energy, like to 20,000 people. Like, how is that energetically as the performer?
It's really interesting, man. It's definitely, and you'll hear this from a lot of performers, it's definitely more daunting to perform to an audience of 100 than to an audience of 10,000. Because in 100, you can see pretty much everybody's face. If you have any part of you that's looking for micro expressions to see if they like you, you're screwed, because there's always going to be somebody in the crowd that's not into it, or they're just thinking about something else. But with 10,000, typically you can see the first 5 rows. You really can't see anything else but that. And the great thing with that too is that, I always integrated comedy and humor into my rap stuff, because when I first started rapping, it's like I was a fat white guy, rapping, and there wasn't a lot of us out there. And so I would go on stage to rap, and there would be people in the audience like this, just arms crossed, basically saying like, I could do that. I could do better than him. Rap audiences are the most judgmental audiences in the world, right? And so what I did was I started bringing comedy into it. And by bringing comedy into it, I saw people figuratively and actually logically really uncross their arms, right? Lower their resistance to what I had to say, to me performing. And so that was one of the first lessons I had in the power of humor, to be able to actually get a message across and actually impact people with what you want to say.
I love that. But that's, talk about also, you're heavier, lost 130 pounds. I wonder about the mindset, and also to keep the weight off, just for the audience, because that's That takes a lot of mental toughness to go and reimagine. What was that process for you?
So yeah, I mean, you're so right, man. It's such a mindset thing, and it's an identity thing, right?
Mm,
And so I had built this identity over time as the fat guy, as the guy who would cope with emotions by eating, as the guy that would cover up darker emotions with comedy, right? Like all these different things that can be a gift, but can also be a curse. And so the realization I had, which is actually in the first chapter of my book, Prison Break, I had this day that I say the universe woke me up, the universe cut me off, was this day where I finally stopped making excuses for why I was as overweight as I was. So there's an element there of a mindset shift into personal responsibility instead of blaming other people, blaming my genetics, blaming my mom for not being a cook when I was younger, blaming the weather in Orlando for being too hot so I couldn't go outside and exercise as a kid, like whatever the thing was. I finally had to take personal responsibility for the role that I had played in that. And so that was a major journey of stepping back into my power of creating the life that I actually wanted to have. Part of that was more tactically, I had weight loss surgery in 2011, which I used to feel really weird talking about because I was so afraid that people were going to say, oh, you took the easy way out or you couldn't do it on your own. And so that became a mindset shift around owning and being convicted around my beliefs, regardless of what other people have said. And so there's just all these gifts that come in when you try to make or you decide to make a big change in your life. You're going to be faced with all the things that you haven't dealt with yet. And it gives you the chance to really work through those things in real time.
I think about in any part of success. I'm not just talking about business success, but kind of that taking that accountability. It comes up over and over, many guests, and when they switched their perspective on that, no matter what's going to be, good, bad, ugly, I'm going to be accountable. That was the action, practically in this world that began them on the journey of getting results in whatever they were trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a matter of also like being able to zoom out. And I'll say that my number one core value is integrity, right? And that's integrity to my word to myself and integrity to my word to others. I don't see integrity as an ethical thing. You're not a bad person if you're out of integrity and a good person if you're in integrity. It's just a marker to see if you can be trusted with your word to yourself and others. And so as somebody who tries, I don't always live 100% integrity. I'm a human, but as somebody who tries to live in that way as much as possible, one of the shifts that I've had is actually away from accountability. And I'll tell you why, is because accountability typically is help me do the thing I don't actually want to do. Right? That's kind of basic accountability. I don't want to do this thing. Like I want the result of the thing, but I don't want to do the thing. And so I need you to keep me accountable. And it works. Nothing wrong with that. What I found has been more powerful for me, whether it's physical health related, business growth related, whatever the container is to switch from accountability to being counted on, right? If I set myself up in a way where people are counting on me to do the thing that's in front of me, that drives me even more than waiting for somebody to check in and say, hey, did you do the thing you're supposed to do? And so when I can connect to that even with my health and say, my future kids are counting on me to go to the gym this morning versus, oh man, I really got to like will myself and I really got to like, say my affirmations and I really got to get my friend to meet me at the gym because if I don't have a gym buddy, I'm not going to go. It's a whole different kind of view, a whole different approach. And so that's been a big thing for me, like I said, especially in business as well. It's like, who is counting on me to do this thing that I otherwise might not do?
I definitely relate to that. Whether it's with my family, my wife, my kids, where I'm going to be in 10 years from now with my business or everything that's going on in my life, I think about that. I know, in other words, they're all exactly that, counting on me. And that's a lot more, it definitely, reflecting on it, it's definitely a lot more powerful. So definitely see that. Tell me, now your journey as a mental performance coach, leaders, CEOs, celebrities, how is that personally for you? How have you gotten into that, and how is that journey for you?
Yeah, from a young age, being the overweight kid, it's hard to feel connection. You're getting made fun of, you feel kind of like an outcast, things like that. And without knowing it back then or having the language for it back then, what I realized was that when I would lean on humor, and I would lean on empathy, I would get connection with people. So either I'd make them laugh and then they would like me for making them laugh, or with girls in particular, they weren't interested in me romantically because, again, I was like the fat kid. But if I actually sat there and listened to them when they were dealing with issues, normally the issues were with my other guy friends that they were dating. But if I would sit there and listen to their issues and have that connection with them, it was a big thing. I felt connected again. And so what I realized is that's been the theme throughout my entire life, is that everything that I've done that I've had any level of success with, I was able to bring my humor and my empathy into it, right? To use them as tools. And so with coaching, I didn't get into personal growth myself until I was 29 years old. I had no idea. I had never picked up a book. Like, I didn't have family that was into that kind of stuff. It just was totally foreign to me. And so when I finally started doing that, and then finally hired my first coach and started feeling real transformation happening, it's kind of like if you go to a restaurant that you absolutely love, like you tell all your friends and you want them all to try the restaurant too. And so I probably became that really annoying person who had their transformation and then thinks everybody has to transform. I outgrew that, and then asked myself, like, how can I be of service with these same tools that I have innate to me and this new level of transformation I found? And so it was always in the back of my head, but I was, still in my six-figure corporate job, doing tech consulting for the better part of 15 years. Then I had left and had my first startup that I did. That was a transportation company, another startup I did in partnership with NASA, like all these different things. And so I was doing all those things. And at the same time, there was always this thing in the back of my head that was still saying, one of these days, you really should try that coaching and speaking thing, because it doesn't seem to be going away. And that was a little over 10 years ago. And so I've been coaching and speaking ever since.
What would you say is I guess, because the name of the show, Common Denominator, that makes the core difference between a successful entrepreneur or successful celebrity and one that does not make it? Because I think of like a long-term sustainable, balanced emotional human being that's able to get stuff done in a real way. What would you say that common thread is?
What I've seen, and there's three main things that I end up working on with clients, and this one is a big part of it, is your identity, right? Which we were kind of just talking about a little bit a few minutes ago. The identity that you think that you are, because the truth of the matter is, the only reason that I'm Jason is because my mom called me that enough times and then I believed it, right? So at some point, the identity was created by outside influence. And so then our entire identity is created by outside influence from then on. And that's just the way the world works. It's not like something's wrong with society because that's how it works. We're egoic, we're human, we have all the range of emotions, so we're going to experience all the things. The challenge becomes when we don't realize it's a role that we're playing and we confuse who we actually are with what we're thinking or what we're experiencing. And so the way that I talk about this a lot, one of my clients I work with was one of the leads in one of the Batman movies. And we were talking about this whole notion of identity. And they were feeling really stressed out about these projects they had coming up, these movies. They were writing and directing and starring in a different movie. They had 3 movies going on at once, and they were just totally overwhelmed. And so what we did is I have this bracelet that I wear that I'll tell you what it says in a second, because it goes along with this idea. But I said to this person, I said, imagine that you are the director of the movie Batman, and let's just say it's the Michael Keaton one, because I don't co-sign any of the other Batmans. But Michael Keaton, the original, the real one, and you're directing him a movie, and he's doing his Batman thing, and then you yell cut, scene's over, you're talking to the crew, getting ready for the next scene, but you look over and you see Batman pacing back and forth on the set. He looks really stressed out, and you're the director. He's your star. You want to make sure he's okay. So you walk over to him and you say, "Hey, what's going on, man? You look stressed out." And he goes, "Moshe, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not strong enough to beat the Joker. Maybe my tech is not powerful enough. What if the people of Gotham die and that blood is on my hands? How am I supposed to live with that?" And you're looking at him thinking to yourself, it's a movie. What is he talking about, right? And so you have 2 options here. Number 1 is to say, okay, Batman, let's make your tech stronger so you can beat the Joker and save the people of Gotham. Or you can remind him that he's Michael Keaton playing the role of Batman. And when we have that realization, it doesn't mean that Batman's problems disappear. But from your own experience of life, whose problems are you easy? Is it easier for you to solve? Your own or a friend?
Always,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a matter of saying, when I get some distance And I ask myself, and it's a practice I do, I'll say it out loud. Today, I am playing the role of Jason, the stressed out entrepreneur who's ticked off that this project is taking longer than it should to get off the ground. I know that character inside and out, man. I can play that guy every day. I know what he says to himself. I know what he says to others. I know how he treats people. I know how hard he is on himself. I know how unrealistic he can be. I know all the things about that. But if I don't at some point realize that is an identity, it is a role I have stepped into, just as if I was cast in a movie like Batman, I need to take a step back and I say to myself, okay, today I am playing the role of Jason, the stressed out entrepreneur, yada, yada, yada. And then I say, okay, let's imagine that was actually a movie that I was in. And I close my eyes when I do this. Let's imagine that's actually a movie I was in. And now they've yelled cut. And I take off whatever the costume is, and I go back to my trailer, and I take all the makeup off and everything else, and I drive home, and I sit with my family. How does it feel to be able to be experiencing life without an attachment to that role I was playing? Not saying it doesn't exist, because it still exists. We're not saying forget all your problems and just, meditate in the Himalayas. But if I can get that distance, then I can go back to, quote, Batman and say, okay, Batman, let's try to work on your problems, but I don't have the same level of attachment. And so I wear this bracelet that literally says not Batman to remind myself anytime I get too much in the weeds, I'm taking myself too seriously, I'm taking my business too seriously, I'm taking whatever too seriously. I got to remind myself, you are playing that role again of that serious guy who doesn't remember how ridiculous it is to be stressing about this thing. What would it look like if you put that role down for just a minute? What's left over? And I always feel more peaceful.
I love that you say that. As a young child, I remember hearing about like the samurai. In order to join the samurai, you have to become kind of an observer of all your emotions and everything that's going on. So you're moving through the world, right? And you're kind of a step back. You've distanced yourself from the I, from the ego.
That's right.
And I think that's in my meditation and my practice. Nobody's perfect, but slowly, the more you can not take things that seriously, right? And you can observe and do the best you can and not be so hard on yourself. The results show that way. And
that's right.
And I assume the successful entrepreneurs have that ability. The ones
they do. They have that ability, and then they have a counterintuitive ability that goes with that, right? So what makes a real entrepreneur, if you just really boil it down, is they have seen that there is something needed and wanted in the world, and they go create it. That's an entrepreneur, right? There's a need, I create it, I'm an entrepreneur. Of course, if I'm selling something, of course. But so the mindset that we have is a problem solver, which we should do that. That's, again, what we're doing. The challenge is that we take that same lens and we put it on our feelings, we put it on our emotions, we put it on our thoughts. And now we have to solve the problem of having a certain emotion. I need to solve the problem of stress. I need to solve the problem of anxiety. I need to solve the problem of sadness. And as much as it feels like, yeah, that's what I got to do, I got to just take control and do that, that's actually the worst thing. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to be able to not engage with them more than you have to. I want you to be able to watch them as if you're watching a security camera footage of, let's say, and this actually happened to me, a dentist's office. You're sitting in a dentist's office, there's, you're waiting for your turn, and there's kids running around just being rambunctious, and there's somebody coughing in the corner ridiculously and not covering their mouth, and all these things are going on, right? If I was watching that on a security camera in like the security room, it would be ridiculous for me to yell at the screen and say, cover your mouth, or stop running around the lobby of the office. It'd be ridiculous to do that. We have to allow that to be, because we know logically there's no way we can make an effect on that while watching it on TV. This is what we want to do with our emotions. Instead of being in resistance to them and think we need to yell at them and change them and fix them and make them into something that they're not currently, it's to instead be able to see that, like you were saying, the distance with the ego and the I, being able to sit there and witness that without having to engage with it. Saying, you know what, the part of me that feels stressed, you're welcomed here. The part of me that feels sad, you're welcomed here. I don't need to force you out. I don't need to push you away. And the energy that we recoup, just from a very logical, effective place for entrepreneurs that are listening who are saying this is starting to get a little woo-woo, from an effectiveness place, you have more energy that's recouped for creative endeavors and for making more money and for building your business or whatever else you want to do, when you're not using that energy to try to combat a perception of a threat that is your emotions. Your emotions are not there to hurt you.
Just a quick reminder, this is the Common Denominator podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd be grateful if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, and subscribe to our YouTube page if you haven't already done so. Thanks so much. Now, back to the show. Tell me, how important is it, not just for entrepreneurs, but people in general, to have a life coach or to have a coach for self-growth?
I personally think that anything you can do that gets you closer to the truth of who you are, whether it's introspection or reading or taking a course or going to a seminar or getting a coach, anything that allows you to do that is fantastic. And I used to have this misconception in coaching that my job as a coach was to facilitate a conversation between me and my client. And I realized after a couple of years of coaching that my real job is to facilitate a conversation between my client and themselves, right? And so if you are an entrepreneur, I get, and even if you're not, if you're a parent, let's say, the demands that you have on you, the time that is not your own, the counting on that's happening all around you, the reliability and dependability that you strive to be known for, so people know they can count on you. They know you're a great entrepreneur. They know you're a great human. All that stuff is fantastic. And taken to an extreme, it actually works against you, right? And so it's really important to be able to have that conversation with yourself, make time for yourself in a way that you typically would never make time for yourself. So any kind of support in that way, whether it's an official life coach or just support system, a mentor, a book, whatever it is, you got to facilitate that inner conversation with yourself.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I definitely see a difference, different people that I talk to, whether they're working, and it could be having a therapist or life coach, whatever it happens to be.
Yep.
One thing also, I know you've done some Instagram posts about how important it is to rest and I get good sleep, and I sometimes struggle with that. I happen to have a lot of children, and they're young and old and every single age, and it's a challenge. I'm working on it. I'm like intent about it, trying to find the right pillow, blanket, right shades, right room temperature, and all that. But why is it so important, especially as we get older? Why is it so important to rest?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's science around this, not just around sleep in general, but if you look at the actual science of flow. So I don't know if, do you know Stephen Kotler? Are you familiar with his work? Yeah. So Stephen's a good friend of mine, and we've talked about this before. And, flow, when you think about flow, and we think about high performance, and the vision we always have is Michael Phelps winning the 8 medals. Like, he's just a machine. He just cannot be beat. He's just doing the thing. But the amount of intense rest that Michael Phelps takes as a ratio of the time spent in general in his career, it's massive. And in the science of flow, deep rest is just as important as the actual periods of flow when you're working. And so the science tells you that, but yourself, right? It's like the old commercials. You're not yourself when you're hungry, or whatever, the Snickers commercials, you get hangry and then you turn into somebody else. You know how it feels if you don't have a good night's sleep. You don't have access to all your faculties in the same way. And so now you're operating with, a hose that's kinked, or, a door that doesn't exactly close right, so there's a draft. Like, there's little things that will throw you off. And so, yeah, it's so important to have that. And one of the things I talked about at Instagram, one of the hardest things for us as entrepreneurs is the amount of times that I have talked to an entrepreneur who was feeling down, right? They were feeling sad, or they were feeling hopeless, or whatever it was. And they're not normally like this. This is just like a thing for them. And we would have a conversation, and we would talk about it, and we would work through it. And the next day I would get a call or a WhatsApp that says, oh, you know what? I realize now I've just been really tired and like really, not feeling great lately. So that's probably why I was sad. So it's fine. We don't have to worry about it anymore. And what I hear in that is that we as entrepreneurs think we need permission to feel. We need permission to rest. We need permission to do all these things, because we have this belief that if we take our foot off the gas, everything's going to fall apart. It's all going to die. And what I try to point people to is this analogy that I really like, that I love food. I love Gordon Ramsay in particular, so I watch all of his shows. And something he taught me, because I have not been a cook my entire life. My mom didn't cook when I was growing up. She made one thing really well, and it was reservations. And so, but Gordon Ramsay, what he taught me was, when you're cooking a steak, after you're done cooking it, you have to put it off to the side and let it rest before you cut into it. And the reason is because when you take it out of the pan, it's still cooking, even though you remove the heat, right? So it's still continuing to cook. And I keep that analogy front of mind for myself because it shows me while I think rest is something that's apart from my business growth, it's actually a part of my business growth. When I'm resting, I'm doing the same thing the steak is doing. I'm still cooking. There's still things percolating in my head. There are things that are being allowed to settle and process and ideate that I'm not even aware of, but they can't happen while I'm doing. I have to slow down at some point for that to happen.
Yeah, I remember reading about Jeff Bezos in the mornings. He just like literally putters around in the mornings, and it's like one good decision, right? One good decision a day, and that's pretty much what it is. And you have to be kind of okay with that and schedule. I think for your subconscious mind, right? The times that you enjoy, fun times, and right, it can't just burn out because it seems to me that your subconscious is just going to be like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Right?
100%. Yeah. And then you lose all the motivation and you get disconnected from the purpose of why you started it. And your North Star just feels like it disappears and it's not there anymore. And then we think there's all these different things. There's a diagnosis of all these things we need to change. And it's like, no, maybe you just need a little rest.
Well, I know you also give a TED Talk and you talk about the concept of manufacturing fascination. Tell us about that concept.
Yeah. So the reason I did that is because, funny enough, to the point of like feeling unmotivated or not connected or whatever else, I noticed that I'm a type A. I'm very ambitious. I talk fast. My hands move all over the place. Like I'm a high energy guy most of the time. And what I realized was that I was relying too much on external stimuli that was novel and significant, let's say, in order to feel that sense of like fascination and enthusiasm, right? It was very, very outside in. And so it's fine. I had goals and all that stuff, but that was kind of the only way that I could experience that. And so it occurred to me one day when I was just kind of down, and I remember the message of always, being present, being in the moment. Everybody, Eckhart Tolle, they all talk about being in the moment. And it seems sometimes a bit, it can be hard to grasp sometimes if you don't really get the language and stuff. And what occurred to me back when I, before I did this talk and when I had this idea back in 2014, 2015, something like that, was that if I really slow down in my life, which is very tough for us as entrepreneurs, but if I really slow down, I start to notice where there are fascinating things all around me. The challenge is that I live, and a lot of us live, most of us live in what I would call the I know mind, right? I know, yeah, Steve accounting, I know what he's going to say. Every time we bring this up, he has something bad to say. And, I know how the chicken parm is at that Italian restaurant down the street. So it's not a big deal to go there and eat again. I've had it before. So it's this I know mind. And if I'm in the I know mind, then something newer and bigger always has to come along for me to feel alive again. And so this idea of manufacturing fascination and engineering enthusiasm is to slow down to the point where, and this is a really great practice that you can do anytime you want, multiple times a day if you want. First time I did it was I just had this feeling. I had gone to Starbucks to get a coffee, and I get my coffee and I'm leaving. And for whatever reason, it struck me the number of things that had to occur perfectly in order for my coffee to be in my hand. Right? All the way back to, the raw materials being picked for the coffee and for the cups and the apparatus that they go in, the machinery that had to be built, the people that had to be trained, the people that had to make the cup and then transport it, and the people that had to be hired to be, and all their stuff and their family stuff that they had all, like everybody has such a story. And there's so many things. I mean, even us just talking right now over the internet, the amount of things that have to go right for us to have this conversation is something none of us are aware of in the moment. But when I really slow down and look at that, I'm like, holy crap, I am literally surrounded by miracles all the time. And so the more I can realize that I'm surrounded by miracles, the less the little bumps and roadblocks hit me. Because if life is full of miracles, if it's a miracle that we're even here as humans on this earth, regardless of what your belief system is,
Amen.
If it's a miracle for us to be here, then everything we experience inside that miracle should also be miraculous. The good stuff and the bad stuff.
I've said many times that just from a numbers, again, we talk about numbers from a statistical perspective. You want to use any metric, it is exactly that. It's like 0.000001, and people don't even think that the mere fact that we exist. So many things had to come to perfection, and you just have to have that in your meditation, what you're doing, and remember that, and then that helps you, rolls you into gratitude and love and creation, abundance, all those things, right? And then if you're just like if you can pick on things, you could do that all day long. But why would you want to live in that space, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Living from our preferences. And I think that it's something that can be interesting too, as another little exercise. I always had challenges. I'm curious of how you've had this, but I've always had challenges with gratitude lists that were kind of like, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for my friends. It never really worked for me. Did you have the same experience? That
Same
it
experience, because that's not, everything has to be internal. I think the starting point is always you with yourself, lying down at night before you go to bed. And that's your truth. It's a thing that stays in your mind. That's the space. It's the space you ran away from, and that's the space you need to sit in. It's always that's your truth. Yeah. And until you get there, I mean, just when I think I've gotten there, I have to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and that will be probably till the end of my life. That's the story.
Hopefully, right?
Yes.
That's a good thing, right? That means you're alive and things are going. And I totally agree with all that. And one thing that's been a shift for me, in case anybody's listening to this and they have troubles with kind of traditional gratitude lists, is I heard a quote one time, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but you'll get the point. The quote was something to the effect of, imagine you can only take with you tomorrow what you're grateful for today. And dude, that hit me like such a ton of bricks when I first heard it, because when I think about that, I go, well, if I didn't have my arms when I woke up tomorrow morning, that would be horrible. Like, what would I do? And my voice, like, what if I just didn't have a voice anymore? My entire life is based off like speaking and connecting. And I start seeing all these little things that I take for granted every day. And I say, oh my God, I'm so grateful for these things, because if I woke up tomorrow without them, my life would be considerably worse. And so it almost feels like a loss-based form of appreciation and gratitude, but it really, really gets me into the micro miracles, the micro amazingness that's all a part of my experience.
Yeah, I love that. I want to say congratulations on Prison Break, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
#1 international bestseller. For looking back at the book now, what is it that speaks to you? What is it that you want the audience to think about when reference to the book?
You know, I wrote the book to be something where you could pick it up, whatever you had, 10 minutes, open randomly to any chapter, because they don't have a linear kind of progression. They're all typically between 2 and 5 pages, so they're not these like long 30, 40-page chapters. And I wanted you to have a reference that would give you a quick reminder of what you already know to be true, right? All the stuff that we do in coaching and personal growth, it's more about subtraction than addition, right? It's more about unlearning than it is learning. And so in the book, that's my goal, is that it's not, I say on the back cover, it's not an instruction manual, it's a destruction manual, right? It's deconstructing and destroying all of these self-imposed walls and prisons that we've created. And so the biggest thing I want people to get from the book is that their mindset is something that is a system of thinking. Optimism is not this like, airy-fairy, woo-woo kind of thing. It's actually a system of thinking, and that we can be much lighter and much less serious, but still have wild levels of success.
I love that system of thinking. I love that. It's really great. Jason, what's something that you're grateful for right now?
Ooh. Man, it's been an interesting morning, like a lot of amazing things this morning before this interview already. I'm going to say I'm just grateful for the support that I have around me. And growing up, I prayed to have people in my life that really saw me and really supported me and really loved me for who I am. And to look at the humans that I've been so blessed to have in my circle now, and to see that, I wish I could go back to my 12-year-old self and just say, it's going to suck for the next 10 or 15 years, but I promise it's going to be really worth it at the end.
I love that you recognize that. It's only effective team play. And the fact, that you have people that see you and that love you unconditionally, which is really special, really, really special. So I get that.
Yeah.
I get that completely. What's something about
you?
Well, I have to say that because again, I was telling you, I've been going through this health thing, and I was thinking just about family, and a lot's been continued layers of myself have been coming out over these past few weeks, and just watching that unconditional love from my family. Super, super, super grateful for that. Things that I believe, the yokes that I had on my shoulders are slowly peeling away, and I'm going to continue to step into that. You have to live each day as if it's your last, right? And I tell you that it's the only way, and not just saying it. You have to just do it and jump. And if they're meant to be in your life, then they will. That is just the way it is. So I'm trying, just like all of us. So. And
thanks for sharing. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. No, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way this is unhinged. This is the unhinged Moshe. So, and unhinged Jason. So I appreciate it. Like-minded, also type A, also crazy, also moving forward, all that stuff. So I get it. Pure love. It's great.
For sure.
But tell us something about you that people don't know.
Oh man. I'm such an open book. So it's, usually I would lead with being 300 pounds or opening for Wu Tang Clan. What else? What else do people not know about me? Oh, okay. I'll tell you. I'm a massive reality TV show guy. I'd like to say it's my guilty pleasure. It's just my pleasure. I'm one of these weird people who believes you can be spiritual and loving and raise your consciousness and also watch really petty, judgmental, stupid stuff on television.
So I agree. So in my doctor's orders, I pounded through all 7 Mission Impossibles. So I have my leg, right? It's like whatever works. And let me tell you something, right? It's the therapy. It's whatever works, right?
Yep.
And stop being so hard. So thank you so much, Jason. Really, it's really been great to connect. Really great to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. If people want to follow you, get your book, get some coaching, how would they go about to do that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Really loved our conversation. Love your energy. Love what you're about. I was telling you before we started recording, just the way you've been able to build this enterprise and then bring all of this other beautiful, lovely, foundational mental health, all these things. That's the goal, man. The goal is to be able to have a for-profit that allows you to give to as many people as possible. So that's it. Bravo to you on that.
And I'll tell you one thing on that point. I was telling someone, it really came to me, struck me clearly. People think I'm like this entrepreneur. I'm the least closest to a business person. It's like I have things to do in my life. It happens to be, okay, please, universe, give me abundance so I can do the things that are important. Like, you know what I mean? So I just do it and whatever. It comes to me and it's fine. So I get it. Thank you.
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it, brother. You're setting an amazing example. So thank you for the model that you're setting for us as leaders and entrepreneurs.
Trying.
And you can find me on Instagram's probably easiest. I'm the Jason Goldberg. Jason Goldberg was taken, so I got the most pretentious name I could. The Jason Goldberg. So you can find me there. And I'm also going to give you guys a link so your audience can get a free copy of Prison Break. So I'll give you a link for that, and you guys can get an audio, digital, or if you pay a few bucks for shipping and handling, I'll send you a physical copy.
It's really kind. Thank you so much, Jason. Blessings. All the best. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jason. Please subscribe to our YouTube page so you never miss an episode. And if you're currently listening to the show, we'd be grateful for a 5-star rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again next week.